check it's going on. It's going on there. Yeah, it's going on. Good evening. Do you know I hate that intro? That intro, because I never hear it. You all hear it, and I can't hear it for some reason. And it never tells me when it's finished and when it's starting or anything. So I really hate that intro. I'm going to have to get another one. I like the music. The music's great. So we'll keep the music, but we're probably going to have to lose that intro. Anyway, good evening and welcome to Raconteurs News. It is the 8th of September in the year of our Lord Jesus Mask 2020. We've had a bank holiday weekend, don't we? Didn't we have bank holiday weekend last weekend? How did that go down? There's been protests. I didn't get to the protest in Sheffield as of... I'll tell you for why I didn't get to the protest in Sheffield is because after I'd done my show on Friday, which was quite a controversial show, I had a number of people that wanted to speak to me about it. I were on the phone to various people and on Skype till about 5 o'clock in the morning. So when I woke up the Saturday morning, it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I'd missed the gathering. And to be honest with you, I'm quite glad I did. It was a lead. The speakers are all sort of, we've got the speakers are all second best, if you understand what I mean. So you got Piers Corbyn, who's really only known because his brother his brother Jeremy Corbyn, and you got Gareth Ike, who's only really known because of his dad. But anyway, I missed that. So thank you to everybody who sent me support after the show, and also thank you to the people that were perhaps a little bit not quite as pleased with me as other people were. But anyway, let's get on with tonight's show. I've got a great guest on tonight. Tom Beresford has put in the chat room, has John wedged you back yet, Jason? No, he's not. No, nobody's got back to me. But let's get to tonight's guest. It's a big, massive good evening and welcome back to Raconteurs News to Neil Sanders. How you doing? Oh, thanks, man. I keep doing these solo layout things. There we go. Good evening. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, man. I'm, bored because it's still a bit boring with all these sort of things that we can't do. It's taking forever to get around the shops, etc., etc., etc. But I'm coping.
You getting out a lot? Are you getting out a lot though? I mean, are you seeing what's going on around you?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I've been wandering around. Was not really I was wandering around because I live in a village, so basically we've got fields and stuff. So I was always able to go out for walks and stuff like that, and I was always going to the off license, and I was always going to the shops and stuff like that. And I've got friends who live on the other side of town who I've gone and visited because there's a really nice pub over there, and so we've sat in the beer garden and stuff. So I've been all right, to be quite honest. So yeah, I've not been all right. I've been shit because it's been shit, but I've been making the best of it.
And I think that's all anybody can do, and it doesn't shock me that suicide rates are up 20%, and you know, people depressions that just massive, and you could tell that they knew what was going to be coming because of the propaganda that we'd had before, and sports personalities in particular coming out with depression and stuff like that.
Well, these are not new problems, are they, Jason? Like, you know, this is not a new thing that basically mental health facilities are appalling in this country. It's really, really difficult to get to see anybody. And when you do get to see anybody, you're often fobbed off or just told, take these tablets for a couple of weeks and see what happens. Like, there's innumerable problems that were sort of floating around. Like, as you say, waiting lists for operations, the fact that basically huge amounts of things were taken off the NHS, and basically that they're considered now cosmetic surgeries and things like this, so you can't get certain other, you know, it's even difficult to get things like physiotherapy sometimes and stuff like that. You've really got to like play your case because they're just really limited in what they can actually offer you. And so when you've got a situation like this where you know, they're handling it really, really, really badly, and basically they're not helping anybody with sort of broader crises. All these things like that were affecting people anyway just get really heightened, and it just exposes the sort of the inequalities in the system and the flaws in the way that essentially, not without wanting to be too sort of like over dramatic, in the way that the bloody government treat people. They treat you like dirt, and now that basically again there's a way to sort of magnify this, it's just becoming more and more apparent. Like and so yeah, I'm not surprised, and it's horrific. It's absolutely horrific that people aren't able to get help. It's horrific that people are worried about their futures and their jobs, and it's horrific that that people are worried about their businesses and just general uncertainty about what's going off, because right from the start the messaging has just been all over the place. Basically, because I get the impression they're kind of making it up as they go along. Like they're really just, you know, they don't have a strategy as such. They're just winging it and hoping for the best. They've got a sort of an idea at the end of what they want to do. And like, and don't get me wrong as well, during times of crisis, we've seen, like, you know, oh, we'll just give this contract to this guy. Oh, we'll just do this track and trace thing. Oh, we're just going to take your data for this. No, trust us on this one, etc., etc., etc. And, you know, imposing these stupid, ridiculously quickly brought out COVID laws and stuff like that. People take advantage of situations, and all of this is pressing on people, basically. But it could be solved. It could be solved very, very easily. Essentially, like, this is it is a bit of an oversimplification, but it boils down to services are poor because there's lack of money. Well, the services are poor because they don't really want them to be good. They want them to be ground into the dirt so that they can go, oh, well, what could we possibly do? Oh, let's ease the burden for the NHS. Let's privatize certain aspects of this. Let's just move it off, which is essentially why the mental health system is in such a disarray at the minute. And that, so I'm not surprised, because it's a shit situation, and you've got idiots in control who are just utilizing any aspect of it they can to feather their own nests.
Yeah. When you talked about the hospitals and the people that are not able to attend physiotherapy and stuff, as you know, I'm an amputee. I lost my left leg a couple of years ago. Now, I was due for a new leg, a different. It was a different. God, what did they call it? Anyway, it was different leg. I was due for a new leg, but I had to have operations on my other leg, so that was put off until the operations on my other legs. I didn't know whether we were going to have that amputated as well. Good touch wood, I've not had to have it amputated, but it has taken a long time to heal. So now I'm just about ready to get back onto a prosthetic. Right. And I think it was about 6 weeks ago that I phoned up and I've not had a phone call back, not had a date or anything. And I've got to go, and you see, they've got. It's not a case as where I can have it over the phone. It's got to be, my stump's got to be measured. You know, they've got to. They've got to design it. It's a new. It wasn't a new prosthetic. It were a new system to connect it. So it was a suction system to connect my leg to my stump, and so that's been put off for over a year, and now I'm nowhere near getting I'm nowhere near getting my prescription sorted. But like I said, I wanted to. We've been talking now for like 12 minutes. I've not even got to the first question, which I told you I was going to ask. Now, the COVID crisis. How marks out of 10? How would you feel that the alternative media or so-called alternative media have dealt with it?
Not well. Oh, out of 10, I don't know. It depends what you mean by dealt with it, because a lot of people have made a lot of money out of it, and a lot of people have really grown their brand off the back of it. But I don't think they've been giving very good advice, and I don't think they've been giving very truthful advice. And I think that a lot of the stuff that's pushed around is just lazily, poorly researched, repeating stuff with an agenda. And yeah, on the whole, it's been poor, very poor. Basically, I think people know my opinion on it. What happened was, when this rolled around in sort of February or whatever, when people were starting making sort of noise about it, people had a couple of choices. They had 3 choices, right? They go, oh my God, start prepping. All that stuff from 2012 that you've got in the garage, get it out, because we're all going to die. So there was that.
From 2008, in my case, to when I heard about prepping and I thought about prepping, back in 2008. So yeah, go on, carry on.
Well, the second option was to go, well, and I understand why people did this, because we had been lied to about the severity of the swine flu and the foot mouth crisis and bird flu and various other Ebola, etc. You know, we're told there's going to be a sort of a world-changing event every 5 minutes, to the point where basically everyone was like, yeah, whatever, like nobody believes you, and quite rightly, nobody believes the government because they're a bunch of liars. And that was the only 2 choices that sort of I saw pan out. And basically, so you had some people saying, oh, it's a bioweapon, we're all going to die, and you had other people basically saying, well, no, this is nothing. It's not even a thing. It doesn't exist. It's not as serious as the flu. All of these things turn out to be nonsense. You've got some people who've gone right to the extreme of, in the past 4 months, just abandoning 200 years of known science and just basically just going, oh, right, viruses don't exist at all. That's it. Right. Okay. Apparently, like, I mean, you know, I've read 2 books on the subject and I'm convinced about it. And that's just stupid. Like, so yeah, not very good. I was actually in February was getting shit off people. That's why I actually came onto your show in April, was it? Because people were like, why have you not got an opinion on this, Neil? What is it? Blah blah blah. And it's like, because I don't know what's happening yet. Let's just wait and see what's happening before we actually, you know, nail our colours to the mast. And everybody basically says nobody's dying. Nobody's dying. It's only the flu. It doesn't exist. They've never isolated it. Like all of this utter proven nonsense. And then by the time that actually people did start to
when you say utter proven nonsense,
yeah,
I mean, how can you say that that's utter proven nonsense?
Because it has been
said in front of me of COVID.
Huh?
Nobody's
well, Komodo dragon, well, have you ever seen Komodo dragon, Jason?
A Komodo dragon, yeah.
In real life?
Not in real life, no.
They probably don't exist then. I mean, other people have told you about it, but they're all lying. It's all lies.
No, I've seen it on TV.
Well, I've seen people
dying running about on TV. I understand what you mean, but they've got wait. I understand what you mean when you say anything can be. You're making the point that a Komodo dragon could be created and CGI'd and what have you, and then put in front of me. But I don't see how that would. Make the individual doing it any better. I can't see any gain from it. You understand? Whereas I can see gain from. I don't know what COVID-19 is. I don't know whether
COVID-19 is the disease that is caused by the virus SARS-CoV-2 that was isolated in January in Korea, and then in March it was put through Koch's postulates when they did experiments on macaque monkeys, and basically what it does is it causes it's an immunosuppressant. Like this, I mean, the best way to do this, because like if we want to go and argue about basically like whether the virus has been isolated and stuff like that, okay, we're just going to go over exactly the same points that I made in the last show, which I'm perfectly happy to do. But I think the best way of showing this is
listen. I'm not talking about that. Right? For me, I don't know the difference, and I don't know whether it's an actual virus and how a virus. I'm gladly say I know nothing about it. Right. So if you're going to explain it to me, then I'm doing exactly what you have just said to me that I shouldn't be doing, is taking it up on somebody else's advice.
No, you shouldn't. You should be going out there looking at the evidence for yourself, which is freely in the public domain.
But you see, I don't care because it's not affected me, because I don't believe in it. You know what I mean? So it's not affected me at all.
That's cool. We should go to the lady across the road. We'll go to the house across the road, and you'll be able to tell that to the kids whose mum's dead. That'll be really great comfort for them. She was 51.
If I knew that, and I had experience of it, you're talking about experience of TV and stuff like that.
Yeah, I know.
If I had that experience, then I would know then that she's died. If someone tells me she's died of COVID-19, and she's had a symptoms of it previously, and everyone tells me, then that gives them some credence. But let me tell you how government that's lied to us about every single thing in the fucking world. Every single thing, every word that comes out of the mouth is lies, or they will call it spin or whatever, right? So all I'm trying to say is that if it is there, and I'm open to it being there. Yeah, I'm not. It's just that I haven't seen anything of it.
Loads of people. If anybody's on my timeline, if Ken or John or any of the people who are on my timeline who've had it, like, want to get in the chat and talk about it, like, go nuts. I'll tell you how I came to believe that it was real. Okay, because everyone says, "Oh, you watched the news, you did this." Can you believe that's not true? Like, what happened was, basically, I was supposed to be releasing a book in Italy, and my literary agent, check my humble brag, he basically started phoning me up because there was going to be an event over there, and we were supposed to be going and sort of promoting it and slagging off Berlusconi, who's actually apparently in hospital at the minute. Anyway, this all got cancelled because basically he phoned me up just in a complete panic, because apparently some of his friends had become ill and sadly passed away. And obviously, I still, to be quite honest, I was thinking, yeah, whatever, it's still only in Italy, I don't really care, to be quite honest. And then I had, by complete coincidence, my friend's wife is a nurse in Derby Hospital, and she was working on the COVID ward there. And at one point, they had 150 bodies that were stacked up there because they didn't have the facilities to get rid of them. And so they were just sort of kept there. And we're
not seeing that, though, are we? I mean, we're not seeing people. We're getting nurses coming out and whistleblowing and saying, there's no flu, there's no disease.
Yeah, but you're also getting
no pandemic, and yet nobody's come out and said, look at all these bodies that we can't get rid of.
That's not true. Have you actually looked for them? There's loads. You could go on YouTube right now.
They'd be everywhere. They'd be everywhere. If sorry, I've not seen any. Right there.
Yeah, there's loads. This is what pisses me off about this whole thing. Everybody says, "Oh, I ain't seen any of that." Have you looked for it? There's loads. Go on YouTube and look at the vlogs from doctors working in the wards. You can go on Twitter and just ask people. You could ask my friend who was working in a ward, and then like by sheer coincidence, I happen to know 3 people that were working closely with it. I happen to know someone who was in Italy whose friends died, and I happen to know somebody in New York whose neighbours were massively affected by it. And basically, one of the people who was working at the ward in Derby, and she was actually taking the blood for the tests. The other friend of mine was working in a laboratory in Nottingham, and they were basically looking at sort of various aspects of it as well, doing the testing, looking at its function, etc., etc., etc. And the third person, by sheer coincidence, is the person who lives next door to my mum. And she happens to be the chief anesthesiologist at City Hospital in Nottingham. And so she was intubating people, and she was the one that was in charge of basically putting people on ventilators, which they now know was a big mistake to do, because it doesn't work like normal pneumonia. And so basically forcing air into their bodies just doesn't work at all. It's just a pointless endeavor. And so that's how I came to know about it, not through actually watching the news, because I don't know whether anyone's read my fucking books, right? Okay, I've written books about don't trust the media and learn how to yourself.
Your thoughts are not your own, part 1 and part 2. Yeah,
Yeah, right.
Both. I'd recommend them both. I've also got here, right here. I've got your book on Charles Manson. So you know, I'm not somebody that's. You know, all I can say is is that you know more people that have died of COVID.
11.
Or who've been touched by COVID in a bad way.
11 that have died, and 7 that have had it and recovered.
Right. So now what I'm doing is, because I've never met anybody and I don't know anybody, is now I'm shitting myself thinking whether and I'm just being tongue in cheek here, but that I now know you. Well, I do know you anyway, but you know, I just, it's just that I've not come across, and I don't know anybody that's known that many people that have died of it. I'm not disputing what you're saying.
The reason is because part of it is because it's where I live. Some people in the village where I live died from it. Where I work, some of my colleagues died from it, and where I sort of live, we're basically, I mean, right in between Derby and Nottingham, and there's a lot of old people in a lot of old people's homes around here, basically. In fact, and this isn't added in my total, but the care home where 12 people died in a week is in a place called Selston, which is just down the road from me. So yeah, this is, and I'm very good. And you know what? I get it. I absolutely get it that people haven't seen it, and I'm really glad that you haven't seen it. Okay, but what I don't understand is that basically everybody's very willing to believe this, that they're like, oh, this woman in Devon, she didn't see a single thing. Good. I'm really glad. That's because it really wasn't actually a bigger problem in Devon. But other people have seen it. And that's what I don't understand, is the willingness to dismiss or not look for the opposing side of the story.
The willingness to dismiss is due to former memories and expectations from the people that are telling us what they want us to hear. That's so we're starting from a really bad place.
Yeah.
If there is a COVID virus and there is a pandemic, and it's going to, you know, I don't know, wipe us out or whatever, or it's on its way down or whatever it is, right? First of all, I don't think it warranted the crap that we've had to put up with.
No, I don't either.
But secondly, it's all coming from a source which we know is not a reliable source.
No, I know. And to cap it off and to make it even worse, they've spent the last year and a half, basically, because of Brexit and various other things, telling people we don't want to listen to experts and that experts can't be trusted. And then they bring out their experts and and tell us to listen to them without even without even questioning, but then basically are doing stuff that contradicts the experts and stuff. So again, I totally understand why people would be like that, but what I don't understand is that basically when people do say, oh, that's fair enough, I have a different experience of it, and everyone goes, well, you're a liar. Well, oh, okay, could it not be that the world's bigger than your front room? Might be, might just be that, maybe. Like, and I'm really glad, okay, I'm really glad that nobody else has had any experience with it. Good. I don't want people to, this is what people are saying is like, oh, it's not even killed 1% of the population. It's like, do you want it to kill 1% of the population?
But that's not what they're saying, is it, though?
Well, it is. That is an exact argument I had on my timeline the other day.
Listen, I know people say these things and say, but what we're not seeing a pandemic, are we? We're not seeing the pandemic that you envisage. You know, the Black Plague was going to be upon us again.
Isn't it? Like, it's boring. The apocalypse is bloody boring. Like, it's long and drawn out and miserable and crap. And now here's the other thing, Jason, right? Okay, and I said this on the last show. It's not actually something to be afraid of. Like, with the right measures, it's totally survivable, and it's totally avoidable, and we could have eradicated it by now, right? And so I'm not telling people to panic by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not nothing. And that's the big point, is that everybody in the alternative world went, oh, it's nothing. And it's like, well, it's not nothing, is it? In fact, to say, as people know from watching the previous show, the excess death at the minute is around sort of hovering just under 70,000. Now, excess death is the amount of people who've died more than expected over the 5-year average. And this is a far better way of looking at the consequences of not only, say, the virus, but the actions of the virus, the lockdown, the people not being able to get to operations, not going to see their doctors or go to A&E through perhaps fear of catching the virus and that type of stuff, through people committing suicide, and through people just dying of things that could have been avoided had there not been these restrictions on movement and stuff like that. And so if you look at the excess death, in America, it's about 210,000. In the UK, it's just under 70,000. So this is a lot of people that have died that should not have died this year, basically. So, I mean, even if you look at places like Sweden, okay, they've had about 5,900 people die. That's 0.5% of the population, right? There's several things that people don't understand about Sweden, right? One, they did lock down. It just wasn't mandated. They closed all large events. They closed schools above 16. They encouraged people to work from home, and they social distance, but it wasn't made into law. Now, do you know how many people are in Sweden? About 10 million. Do you know how many people are in London? About 11 million, right? Okay. Do you know how many people died in London? 6,000. 5,000 people died in Sweden. Sweden's 3 times the size of the UK.
But so again, we've got the language, which somebody pointed out. They'll say died with COVID rather than COVID.
Okay, let's do this again then.
Yeah, all right. We did. I know we've done this before. Listen, I don't want to get into a row with you,
because people are going to be arguing about this, right? Okay, it doesn't kill you. It's an immunosuppressant in exactly the same way that AIDS doesn't kill you. It's an immunosuppressant. So again, brilliant. We'll do this, okay, because I've got 3 points that show that basically, again, the alternative media isn't fact checking, isn't doing things properly, and is basically just sticking to their guns for whatever reasons, because basically they said something in February and they refused to change their minds. Right. Recently, everyone was putting around that the CDC reduced the number of deaths from 181,000 to just under 9,000, or just over 9,000, 6%, because somebody had found on the CDC's website that only 6% died of COVID, right, with no other comorbidities. And it's like, for fuck's sake, this virus has been around for 6 months and nobody's actually bothered to check what it does or how it works. For a start, right, COVID's not the virus. COVID is the disease that is caused by the virus SARS-CoV-2. It's an immunosuppressant. What it does is it stops your immune system from working. So if you've got a comorbidity that you are living with, like diabetes or high blood pressure or something like that, a heart complaint, then all of a sudden you need your immune system to be constantly stopping that from killing you. Basically, even stuff like basically being overweight can cause incredible pressure on the system. If your immune system is immediately taken away from you, those things kill you. Okay, and that's why it tends to kill people who are vulnerable and have comorbidities. The people who have died who seemingly had no comorbidities, they didn't die of COVID either. They died of acute respiratory distress syndrome, which is caused when the virus causes the disease to make your immune system attack itself. And how it attacks itself is your lungs explode, essentially. It shoots out this horrible toxic gunk that's full of blood clots, which is why basically when you put people on ventilators, it wasn't killing people. And this is one of the ways that they actually can test for it, because the striation pattern that's caused by the splitting of the lung tissue and also the pneumatic fluid that's inside is like nothing that's never been seen before. It's completely unique to this disease, and it can be shown up on a CT scan. And basically, it is an indicator that you've got the cytokine response from COVID-19. So nobody dies of it. So this bullshit that's been put out by grifters like Jensen and other liars that basically, oh, they're mixing it up because of dying of and dying with. That's not even what the legislation says, right? Okay. And so nobody's died of COVID. It's just that 6% of the people that were registered didn't actually have what could be considered a comorbidity. A comorbidity is high blood pressure, which 30% of the entire world has. So that's literally an absolutely nothing point that people put out to try and muddy the waters. And even say, hang on, and even let's just say, right, that they did, that everybody that's dead, right, okay, they lied on their death certificate, which they didn't, but let's just imagine for the sake of this argument they did. Where the fuck did they find in America 210,000 extra people to die? Like, it's not swapping out the flu. The worst case of flu in America in the last 20 years killed 65,000 people in 1 year. We've already killed 210,000 people from something in America. So for people saying that they're swapping out the flu figures, again, is just lazy. In 2018, which was the height of the flu in the UK, about 24,000 people died. And that was actually considered a pandemic. A localized pandemic, but it was considered a pandemic, and that pushed up the excess death in January or that year to about 65,000. Right, so not the excess death, the total death to 65,000. We're far above that. We've got, as I say, nearly 70,000 excess deaths on top of the high death that we've already got. And again, this can be checked. And so when people put stuff about, okay, let's go for the other ones. Let's sod it. Let's just do it now, right? Okay. The other thing that came out recently, which made me piss myself, was the chromosome 8 thing. This was, and again, the reason it made me laugh was because it was pushed by that fraud Andy Kaufman, who, by the way, didn't go to MIT. He lied about his MIT qualification. He's an absolute liar. And he's still charging £1,000 an hour for a Skype call. I emailed him, said I had symptoms for COVID. Is this an honourable thing, Jason? Just yes or no? I emailed him, said, oh, I've got symptoms of COVID. I'm worried. Should I go to the hospital? And he emailed back and said, no, don't do that. Book an appointment with me for $1,000 and we'll chat over Skype and I'll get rid of your exosomes for you. Oh, the only problem is the first appointment's in 3 weeks' time. So don't go and get yourself checked out. Don't do anything like that. No. Wait 3 weeks and pay me $1,000. Is that an honourable thing to do?
No, of course not. Or is
that fucking dangerous and irresponsible to the point that you should probably go to fucking prison for shit like that?
I would listen. I wanted to just get in and back just a slight bit, right? And what I'm going to concede something here, right? I'm going to concede something here. The with COVID thing, I can understand because when people died of AIDS, it was never that they died of AIDS, it was they died of an AIDS-related illness. So
yes,
I'm going to concede that. That's one of the things I'm going to concede that, because, you know, that's right.
Do you know why my story's not changed since April, Jason? Because I'm telling the truth. Okay.
Well, listen, nobody's telling nobody. I'm not calling you a liar.
No,
I got you
no,
on this show because I enjoy talking to you. I enjoy because we can have a debate. We can have an opposite opinion or something.
Oh yeah,
but
totally.
we can still then talk about something else. So the next question I wanted to ask you was, you know, the Save Lives, the shit that they used to have at the front of the. Was that Cambridge Analytica?
Well, it's certainly Dominic Cummings, but no, it's certainly Dominic Cummings. Dominic Cummings was connected to Cambridge Analytica via Leave.eu and Vote Leave, which were the campaigns to basically keep people to promote the Leave campaign. Now, Dominic Cummings is connected to Cambridge Analytica like that, so his messaging, I wouldn't be at all surprised. But here's the thing: Dominic Cummings never wanted there to be a lockdown. Dominic Cummings is the person, who was quoted as saying, "Save the economy, no lockdown. Who cares if a few pensioners die?" And as I said, my point that I was trying to bring up in April was that there was a policy decision to move people that had recovered from COVID but still were infectious out of hospitals into care homes, and basically leave them there to convalesce. And there was also a policy decision made that they weren't allowed to test them. And if anybody showed symptoms of COVID, that they were to basically just shut down the entire unit. And essentially what this meant was that everybody in there was basically found to cause, was bound to catch it. And then you can't treat them because you've got these care home staff who basically don't know how to treat it and basically are there trying to isolate as well. And it's a perfect storm. And I can't believe that they didn't know that would happen, because logically, you know, that's what's going to happen. Here's the horrible thing, okay, is that basically who's died? Pensioners and the vulnerable, people who are long-term ill, and people who cost the government money.
Useless eaters.
Precisely. Now, it's a fine line between, did they want that to happen, or did they just not care if that happened? Because you know what? It saved them a lot of problems and a lot of money. And the other thing is say that they could do, which also Dominic Cummings wants to do, is privatise the NHS. And this is the point. They can frame it so that the NHS has performed particularly badly, and then say, oh, it wasn't a policy decision. No, it wasn't this. It wasn't due to, like, you know, decades of mismanagement and underfunding the NHS and you know, but privatization on the sly in like slices. No. It was due to the staff. And so again, I know I'm flicking around a bit here, but that's why when people started doing the whole, oh, it's not a virus, it can't be a virus that's killing all these people, it's doctors and nurses murdering them, I was like, be very careful with that for several reasons. One, because it's fucking not true. Two, it's just offensive to all these poor sods that are out there risking their health and looking after elderly people and you know, they're doing their job. What, you think they've all turned around and just gone en masse? Like, let's just off a load of like.
But that doesn't need to happen, does it? I mean, that doesn't need to happen. All that needs to happen is that they say, right, what we're going to do is we've got certain people now who are on do not resuscitate. Monstrous,
absolutely. And this is the point. This is exactly what I was saying. Like, whilst there's a crisis, they've made hay whilst the sun shines. They've realised basically, okay, whatever, we don't like this. We've got this particular angle, this particular agenda. We could get rid of some pensioners. We can steal some data. We can work towards privatising the NHS. Let's use this to our advantage, because basically we've got an opportunity whilst people are frightened and whilst people are uncertain and whilst people are trying to get toilet roll because they can't get toilet roll, and etc, etc, etc. And so yeah, this is the point. Like that aspect of it is completely true. Like, and it's right for people to be wary of that. But I don't agree with the other angles that people are coming from, where basically either they say that viruses themselves don't exist, or that this virus doesn't exist, or that they're hyping the death rates, or that tests don't work, or any of this crap. Because looking into it, their arguments don't hold up. They're all flawed or based on lies. I'll give you a very quick example. There's this, people are floating around the idea that Kerry Mullis, the inventor of the PCR test, he said that they should not be used to diagnose infectious diseases. And there's a problem with that, in as much as, no, he didn't. Andrew Kaufman totally made that quote up. He totally made it up. He made it up. There is another quote floating around that pertains to HIV that starts quantitative PCR is a myth, and people say, and it ends saying it can find pieces of viruses, not whole viruses. And some people have floated that around saying, well, this proves that basically the tests don't work. And what that means is something that pertains to why perhaps we're not seeing as many deaths now, but the infections are going up, is to do with viral load. Right, the PCR tests, they don't test. They're not what. There's another thing that's floating around that people say, basically, it says on the website, blah blah blah, that these are not to be used as a diagnostic tool. No, this is true. They're to be used as what's called a preliminary diagnostic tool, in as much as that's not good enough to say you've definitely got the virus in a hospital setting. So if you need to be hospitalized due to illness, they'll do a blood test. They always do 2 PCR tests and at least 2 blood tests. And it's the blood test that they actually go off. What a PCR test is for, it's to, the way of thinking about it, it's like a roadside blood test, roadside breath test. When you're pulled over, you breathe into the thing, and if you blow over 35, you're taken off to the station. But if you, with a blood test, go under 35, then you're free to go. The preliminary thing that gets you investigated is there. And this is the point. PCR tests can tell if you've got the virus, but they can't tell how much. And viral load is important because you need a certain amount of viral load to be able to spread it to other people. And maybe that's what we're seeing at the minute, but basically, like a lot of people are being tested because obviously the numbers of people being infected or whatever, or testing positive, has gone up. But it could well be that their viral load is a lot smaller. It could also be that basically that the virus has evolved to the point where it doesn't want to kill you, because then it dies. This is the point about viruses. They like to stay hidden in you. And this is where this nonsense about basically viruses and exosomes come from. It comes from the misreading of a paragraph by Dr. James Hildreth, who said, when talking about HIV, this virus is an exosome in every way. And what he's referring to there is the Trojan horse mechanism that HIV does. It jumps into cells that pass around the body. Exosome is a cell that's moving. Endosome is a cell that's in. That's all it means. It's not a special thing. It's a communication tactic. And so this stupid misrepresentation of what they do is just childish. But basically, what happens is HIV hides in these cells so it can go around the body. And that's what James Hildreth said. Now, interestingly, when Andrew Kaufman put out his crap about exosomes, someone contacted James Hildreth and said, he's using your work and he's saying that you said this. And he's publicly denounced him. He's absolutely publicly denounced him. But anyway, that brings me on to the second point that I wanted to make, which I was starting about, this chromosome 8 thing. Because there was a big hoo-ha that everyone said, wow, look at this. The PCR test, it seems to match chromosome 8 of human genome. And to be fair, it actually does. That line there matches the reduced, not the full thing, but the reduced genetic code of chromosome 8. And it's like, okay, fair enough. People have actually found something. What I did think was interesting, though, was that basically Andrew Kaufman nicked it, which again basically shows that he's not a particularly moral character. This woman on the internet found it, and then he basically said, oh, I found this ages ago. And it was glorious because it shows that this man doesn't know the fucking first thing that he's talking about. Basically, what it said was that in this PCR test, the primer matches chromosome 8, and because of this, what it means is that the test is simply picking up chromosome 8. So everybody will have it, which means that they can hype up the amount of positive tests. And it's like, well, that's not true. It actually picks up the unique genome to COVID-19, which is available for anybody to check. It's been available since January. You can go and check it. We're pretty good at finding the genetics of people. Like, we can find this is how people get caught. Like DNA tests. Like, this is not a massively new science. Anyway, so he goes out there and says, look at this. They've put this chromosome 8 in it, and this is what it searches for. There are several things wrong with this. The first thing was that basically this particular test was only used at one institute in France called the Pasteur Institute. Okay. The second thing is that basically the primer isn't what the test is looking for. So for him to even suggest that literally shows that he doesn't have a clue what he's talking about. Not the first clue. And the second thing that shows that he's a complete lying moron is that primer is the reverse primer. So actually the sequence CTT, GTT, CG, GTT, doesn't go like that. It goes backwards. And furthermore, when you go backwards, you replace the G's with A's. So it actually goes TATTTAAA. So it doesn't match at all. It wouldn't matter if it did match. It was only used in one particular thing. And it just goes to show that this man doesn't know what he's talking about. But because he's offering people comfort, right, this is the thing, right, okay? This is why so many people have gone for like this stupid terrain theory, which is based on pretty much one quote. Like apparently on his deathbed, Pasteur said Beauchamp was right. The microbe is nothing. The terrain is everything. And it's like several things. Like one, no, he didn't. He didn't say that at all. Even the book in which people claim that quote is from doesn't say it in it. It's just a made-up quote. And if you're having to make up things and lie about stuff like that, what the fuck? Right, okay. This shows deception. Why are you being deceptive? So basically what happens is that people, but anyway, so let's say you did make that quote, okay. What if Henry Ford on his deathbed went, you know what, Jason, cars don't exist. Who gives a shit what he said on his deathbed? What you've got to do is go back and go, well, what was wrong with his rabies experiment? What was wrong with his experiment to look at this? And what was wrong with this? And what was wrong with the pasteurization of milk experiment? And what you need to disprove 200 years of science. You can't just go, oh, Chapio said that it was crap on his deathbed. Oh, was it? Right. Well, we'll just like ignore all the sort of known facts about it. It's ridiculous. It's totally ridiculous. But
can I just, sorry, I just want to, because you start going and there's not really very much that I can do to stop you. But what I wanted to, we were talking about before. I wanted to add some of my own experiences into this. And how you talk about do people then, people who work in care homes or people who work in hospitals, do they then suddenly they go all like the pulling meds away and taking meds away. Now, when I was in hospital 2015. I'd had a heart attack and I'd just had some surgery and had some stents put in and stuff. And I was in hospital, and the nurse came in the middle of the night and started to got a needle and started pulling my top up. Now this nurse could hardly speak any English, and this is not this. In fact, I'm not even going to justify it by saying it's not racist or anything. I'm just going to say she hardly spoke any English.
Yeah.
And I said to her, I said, "What are you doing?" She said, "Flu jab." And I said, "No, I don't want to. I'm not having a flu jab." And she said, "No, I have to give you a flu jab." Now, that in that same hospital, right? So I never had the flu jab. I told her to take it and do whatever she wanted with it. But that same hospital, because I'd been taken in on an emergency, I didn't have an inhaler, right? Oh, no. So I said to them, "Can I get an inhaler?" And they couldn't get me an inhaler. They couldn't get me an inhaler the whole night. They couldn't get me an inhaler, and I had to be on a nebulizer all night. But they got a flu jab. Now, secondly, when I was in, I think it was this last time with this leg, which were last year, and I was in the hospital, and I was sort of the bloke next to me had fucking shit himself, and he kept shitting himself and then lobbing it at nurses when they came, and we were just a complete and utter cunt. But it absolutely fucking stunk and all this sort of stuff. But so I was awake, and I could hear the nurse at the nurse station, and the nurse was saying to whoever was on the other end of the phone, "Can you not get them to do a DNR? You know, to agree to a DNR. Can you not get them?" And she kept on and on and on at this other nurse saying, pushing, get them to accept a DNR, to consent to a DNR. And that's what all they were doing. All she was doing. So what I'm saying is that we're not talking about completely evil nurses. I mean, I got a fucking on mine. The nurses that work at night in Sheffield Hospital, which is the best cardiac hospital. It's got the best cardiac unit in the entire country. Saved my life no end of times. I've had 2 heart attacks and all sorts of leg issues and shit going on. But what were I saying? Oh yeah, on one of my missus started reading my notes. She came to visit me in hospital last year when I were in hospital. She came every day and she read me notes. And what they did, because I'm on warfarin, they did what they can't just it's a blood thinner. So what they have to do is they have to get your INR to a certain point before they can do the operation. Otherwise, you'll just bleed out. It's 1.5, and now my range is 2.5. Now, in what they do is what they call bridging. So whilst I'm not getting any warfarin, I'm having injections, heparin injections in my stomach every single day, and then a warfarin dose as well. So until it brought my INR back up. That's what happens if I go below 2. Anyway, I got my wife was looking through the notes, and she said, and she noticed that it was it was May, no, it was August. Sorry, August, and it had got the list of how much dosage I was supposed to have per day, and it was like the 26th, the 27th, 28th, the 29th. 30th, 31st, 32nd.
Lovely.
So, and I knew that was done by one of the nurses who worked at night, and who didn't speak very good English, and it's not her fault. She doesn't speak very good. That she's been employed, and she don't speak very good English and can't read it. But what I'm saying is that there's no need for nurses to all turn around and say, "Oh, we're going to kill all the people before." All they have to do is set certain.
Is overwhelmed the place. Yeah, absolutely. Because the NHS has been being defunded since 1981 by the Adam Smith Institute and various people connected to the Reagan administration through Thatcher and stuff like that. So this is again, Jason. This is what we said at the beginning. This is not known. We know the NHS has got huge amounts of problems. It's still preferable as a system to privatization, but it's being ground into the dirt. It's been being ground into the dirt, and that's the point. When you put a crisis like this on top of stuff, it basically, it highlights, as we said right at the beginning, it brings all those things to the surface and exacerbates those already existing problems. Like, again, just to finish my point, because the reason, again, that people look for the easy answers, right, okay, and the conclusion, like, for example, something as oversimplistic as the doctors and nurses murdering, rather than basically this numerous issues that are causing these deaths that shouldn't happen, right, is because people want closed loops, right? it's the worst thing that you can have is uncertainty, not knowing, not being in control of your own destiny, and not being in control of your own fate, and having things imposed on you from an outside perspective. It's one of the oldest mind control techniques in the world. Basically, all you do is basically you provide terror and anxiety and uncertainty, even down to sort of like the basic concept of, like, you know, a pimp saying, "I'm gonna kill you, bitch." Like, okay, it's that simplistic mechanism requires people to make stories in their heads and to tie things off. And so in the case of, say, a pimp, what she'll do is she'll go, "That's because daddy loves me. That's why he beats me. So I'm going to give him my money." Right? Because it's safer to do that. Right? Okay. So what you've got in this case is you've got people wanting to dismiss the entire thing, partly because, as you say, thankfully they've not had any personal interaction with it. Secondly, quite rightly, because they're right to be suspicious of the government and the people where this message is coming from, but also because basically this is just, you don't need this crap. You just don't need it, right? Okay. And so if you can dismiss it and cut it off to the point where it's not a problem, then you can focus on other stuff, basically. Like you've dealt with that, you've psychologically put it in the drawer, bang, done, and now you can get on with other stuff. And that's fine if it doesn't affect you. But the problem is that basically that's not going to make reality change in regards to this, right? Okay. And so and again, so to pretend that it's going to kill us all is ridiculous. It's not. It's really not. It's totally manageable. Other places have managed it. That's what's really embarrassing, is that basically if you look at places that have been conceived to do badly, which is the UK, it's Brazil, it's India, and it's America, right? Belgium, perhaps. Sweden, you can make the argument. All of those people were put in by Cambridge Analytica. Boris Johnson got in off the back of leave.eu, which was Cambridge Analytica. Modi was put in India by Cambridge Analytica. Trump was put in by Cambridge Analytica, and Bolsonaro was put in by Cambridge Analytica. And you know what the theme that's running through all of those countries, why they've seen more deaths than they should, is because basically they've all done let's pretend it's not a fucking big deal. Like, Trump's been downplaying it. Cummings has been downplaying it. We waited too long to lock down, save the economy. Who cares if the elderly die? Recently, and this wasn't talked about, which is strange, but Anders Tegnell, who's basically the person, the architect behind the Swedish plan, and it seems to be working out now. Good, great. Let's hope it does. Brilliant. But they've still lost 0.5% of their population. Okay. He's in emails was discussing the strategy and with another scientist, and basically what they did was they played off freedoms for the amount of for the amount of pensioners that died. And basically in this email they says, well, if we do this, if we mandate masks, we'll save an extra 10% of pensioners. And Tegnell's answer was, is it worth it? Which is an interesting point when you know what Dominic Cummings did. And the thing about Sweden is that basically Sweden's in the pocket of America, like from a sort of military standpoint and from various other sort of standpoints. Sweden is actually sort of beholden to American politics in a lot of ways that people perhaps wouldn't appreciate. And so it's very interesting that basically, like, that attitude, this you know, pretend that it's all right, go and say. And I've said this before, the reason that is so that they don't put their hands in the pockets. What they could have done is taken the £20 billion that we give the oil companies every year in subsidies that basically just goes into their profit margin, and we could have used that to finance mental health initiatives and to make sure that people were getting the medicine that they could, and basically bolster up aspects of the NHS that were being lost, and giving people money so that their businesses didn't go. Like, and I don't mean Debenhams and you know, whatever, Pret a Manger, although, you know, people's jobs are at risk, but I mean, like, you know, self-employed people, small businesses and stuff like that. Like, these all could have been saved had they actually wanted to. And here's the interesting thing, Jason, I said this before, like, but I don't think a lot of people sort of got this when we did the last show. you remember the Film the Hospitals thing, where hashtag Film the Hospitals, where they were going and filming like empty like
Yep.
like that? Do you know who started that?
No idea. Go on.
A bloke called Jason Jones from the Council of National Policy. The Council of National Policy is the think tank that basically is higher in the sort of echelons than the Heritage Foundation. And so basically, that's big business. That's the Koch brothers, that's the Wilkes brothers, that's the oil industry, that's the evangelical right and the political right, that's the DeVos family and all of those characters, right? Okay, they were behind the hashtag Film the Hospital thing. Why on earth would big business be wanting to undermine this thing? Do you know who was behind the Stop the Lockdown protests, the initial ones in America?
But just if the whoever's behind them, if they're filming hospitals that are virtually empty, then surely
what they were doing was a really cheap media trick of filming the car parks and saying these are empty. It's like, of course they're empty. People have been told to stay away. That's why people are dying from not being able to get their elective surgeries. You can't have it both ways. Either people aren't getting the help that they get, or hospitals are full. Which is it? So this is the point, and it was shifty. Why would they want to undermine it? The people who were behind the anti-lockdown protests, and this is true, admitted, 100% admitted, was the Koch brothers, the Heritage Foundation, and Betsy DeVos and her family. Betsy DeVos is the Secretary of Education, and she's also in the Heritage Foundation and connected to the Trump administration and the Koch brothers. Why? Why is big business behind trying to undermine the response or the seriousness of the disease? I'll tell you for why. It's dead straightforward. I've said it already. They don't want you to stop working. They don't want you to stop making them money. They don't care if you get ill. They don't care if you die. Hopefully you won't. But they don't give a shit, right? So they're quite happy to push it out there. And you know, when it's those people that are pushing that angle, all this like, oh, we don't trust the government and stuff like that. You trust the Koch brothers, do you? Like, well, if you don't, which you shouldn't, you should look at what they're trying to manipulate you into doing and probably not do it. Or at least take it on advisement that perhaps they haven't got your best interests at heart, and wonder why it is that it's this aspect of it that's pushing this. And here's the weird thing. I'd like, just to get this completely on the record, this new normal, hashtag new normal and stuff like that, I'm not down with that either. This shouldn't be the way that it stays for any longer than it absolutely has to. Like, I mean, that you know, we shouldn't get rid of cash. We shouldn't socially distance forever. We shouldn't work from home forever or remotely and stuff like that. We should get back to how it was. Okay. Now, here's the interesting thing. That hashtag new normal is being pushed by the Council for Foreign Relations, which is a left-wing think tank or majority left-wing think tank. So you've got on the right wing, you've got massive.
What's the CFR? What's the CFR? I mean, are we talking about? We're not talking about Britain, are we? With the CFR.
Well, they're behind hashtag new normal. They're the people that are pushing that.
Right. Okay.
Right.
So,
okay.
So they're behind this new normal thing, yeah. And I would imagine Cambridge Analytica would have had some.
No, because again, maybe actually with the messaging, Cambridge Analytica doesn't really exist anymore. Like they're now called Emma Data. They sort of disintegrated when the police started looking at them, basically. But yeah, that's this is the point. You've got like very, very wealthy people on the left pushing this concept of new normal, right? And you've got very, very wealthy people on the right pushing this idea of pretend that nothing's happening. And what is the result of that? The result of that is going to be chaos, and it's just going to exacerbate both sides. It's going to build resentment on the right. It's going to build resentment on the left. It's going to cause a divide between ideological approaches to the way that it works, and ultimately it's going to end in more power for everybody on the top, right? Okay, because
but can't you see that what you're doing now is making an argument for this whole debacle to be made up?
No, I'm not at all. It's more nuanced than that. It's not that it's made up by any stretch of the imagination. It's that they've taken advantage of a situation. And I'm quite prepared to say Yeah, they've had this plan in their back pocket for ages, and the second that the right circumstance came about, they rolled it out. But that doesn't mean that they planned it, or that they created the virus, or even that they released the virus on purpose. My personal take on it is that it was released by accident from the lab in Wuhan in October, because there's a certain amount of evidence that shows or the phone, basically nobody seemed to be able to go to that lab for like a sort of 2-week period. There's no phone data around it, and it looks like potentially there were roadblocks, and like there was a sort of cordoned off area around the laboratory. Now, that doesn't prove anything, but it was shortly after that that it officially got released, and then basically it infected all the athletes at the Wuhan Games. Now, what's interesting is that Event 201, the sort of pandemic planning scenario or whatever, you know, the reaction, response, public liaison, public sort of, you know, relations thing that they did, that was after that event. So whilst everyone basically says, oh, Event 301, because basically it's a pandemic and it's an airborne pandemic, there's enough similarities in it to show that that is prior knowledge that it was going to happen. Yeah, maybe, but I think that's a bit thin. But what it could certainly be is that basically they went, shit, we're going to have to face this in a second, in whatever way, all right? We don't know how bad it is. Let's put it into the mind of the public that this is how they're going to react. So it's not that basically they planned it, but they jumped on it as soon as they physically could.
Honestly, Neil, for me, that when you're saying that they were seeing how the public would react.
No. They were gaming the public and telling them how they were going to react.
Yeah, like, right. Okay, so they're telling them how they're going to react to something that then happens. Yeah, right away. It's straight away. It's like it
had happened weeks before. That's the point. It had happened. The shutdown at the Wuhan lab happened weeks before Event 201, not after it, before. So my wonder is, did they go, oh fuck, something's been released, we need to prep the general populace to react in a certain way, and that's why they rolled it out?
Sorry, my daughter's just texted me and it popped up on screen. So she's not listening, she's just telling me she's going to come and see her dad tomorrow.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. We've got a few. We've had a few. What's your stance on masks? And I know you're not supposed to stand on masks because that's not the way you're supposed to wear them. But what do you think about the mask issue?
I haven't seen anyone dying of hypoxia. Ninjas seem to cope. Like, I honestly don't see the big deal with masks. If you want me to
ninjas seem to cope.
Yeah, they wear masks all the time. Like
ninjas. Yeah. Yeah, but they don't wear. I mean, the masks that they're selling on TV. It will say at the bottom, no medical, not medical equipment. It'll protect.
They're not there to prevent disease. They're not there to stop you catching it. They're there just to stop you spitting on other people. It's as simple as that. Everyone's going to be going, but a virus is smaller than the mesh of the mask. Yeah, the mask is to stop you spitting. Viruses need a host. They need a host to exist. Oh, we could come on to the freedom of information request thing if you like. Anyway, viruses need a host to exist. So it's not free in the air. It has to be spat out. You can't spit through a mask. It stops you spitting. That's better than being able to spit at people. That's it. It's as straightforward as that. I honestly don't see the big problem with masks. I don't see why it's become such a big political issue at all. Like, can't you just pretend you're a cowboy?
Why should we pretend anything? I mean,
what's the big deal about wearing masks?
We are a bunch of pretenders. We're pretending that there's As far as I'm concerned, we're
Well, we
pretending.
can have a spitting contest if you want. You wear a mask, I'll not wear a mask, and we'll see who wins.
Say that again, sorry.
We could have a spitting contest if you like. You wear a mask, I'll not wear a mask, and we'll see who wins. Like, that's the whole point of them. I don't really see what everyone's so sort of bent out of shape about them, really.
People didn't spit at each other anyway, unless they were.
That's how a virus spreads, through coughing and sneezing. And actually, yes, people are spitting. There's loads and loads of things, because what is happening is basically this gets into your brain and stuff like that. There's actually loads of videos of people. You go and, like, you should get a guy called Dr. Kevin McCann. He's really good, and he's noticed this thing called COVID zombies, which is basically people who have had the disease for a while, acting like maniacs, either licking people or spitting people, or going up and sort of like grabbing people and rubbing on each other and stuff like that. And apparently, basically, there's some studies coming out that what happens is, goes into your nose, so your mucous membranes, or through your eyes, or your mouth, and it makes its way down to your lung before getting into your bloodstream, goes into your spine and up your brain. So not dissimilar to the way that rabies works, actually. And what
has there been any documented cases of anybody coming down with COVID after they've been licked, or after they've something?
Yes, there was that one that was
people being wankers, right?
No, yes, Jason, yes, there is. There was that woman who was spat on the train and she died.
Right. Okay.
Yes, it has been happening. This is the point. I didn't. What is your take on masks? Because I don't even know what I'm arguing against at the minute. So, what's your take? Do you hate them? Do you think that they don't work? Do you think that they're an imposition on your rights, or what?
I think the muscles. I think they're just a way to get people. You remember when people used to tip buckets of water over the red ice?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. Those people, what that was just in order to see how many people would be able to they could take in, and the post.
You say that, but do you know why Japan did really well? Because they wear masks. Almost as a sort of cultural thing. Masks stop you spitting out, right? So if you've got the virus in you, which travels through droplets of moisture, it's a barrier to prevent you. It's not going to stop everything, but it's better than not. I honestly really don't see the problem.
Well,
if people don't want to wear masks,
the Japanese wear masks.
I don't give a shit.
Just give me a second. The Japanese wear masks. The pictures that you'll see of Japanese people wearing masks are mostly on the underground system, and they use them to keep pollution out and stuff like that, just like they did in China. But the start of that was due to some sort of virus being released. I don't know if you remember, back in the 90s, there was a virus released on an underground station.
The
reason why people now wear masks. So you know, it's something that's taken off and it's stuck. Do you really want to live in a world where everyone's wearing a mask? I mean, no.
I mean,
in France. I mean, what happened?
Who said I want to live in a world with masks? No, who said that? Who's told you that? We'll go around to the house and I'll beat him up for you for lying to you, Jason. Right? No, but basically, if you've got a disease that is being spread by people coughing and sneezing on one another, a barrier to stop people from coughing and sneezing that you wear for the hour that you nip down the shops, I don't see the problem.
You get flu from.
You do get flu, but as we discussed at the beginning of this, flu kills about 70,000 people a year on average in the UK, and we've already lost 70,000 people more than the 5-year average. So it's really comparable to the flu. We've also had 8,000 cases of the flu already this year. The average is 70,000, and we haven't had winter yet. We're on line to have basically quite a high number of flu deaths, more than the average. Same in America. So again, this is what pisses me off about this whole thing, because it's all basically just rather than looking at the facts, it's like, all right, but what about this?
Facts, though. Where are you getting your facts from?
What about this?
Look, you get flu, you get all sorts of things going round, right? And it builds up your immune system. I mean, you must think God's some sort of fucking idiot. He didn't put an immune system in you, so now we need to build Gates. That's what it said, Bill Gates.
Teeth. Your shins are at the front of your legs. When was the last time you backed into a fucking coffee table, right? God has made so many bastard mistakes with the human body, right? That this idea that basically we're immune to everything. I said this last time, go and fuck a prostitute with HIV and let's pray that we don't die. It's not how it works, Jason. And it comes to a point where basically you just have to go, you know, let's not just pretend that nothing's happening. If it's not affecting you, that's great. That's good. I don't want it to affect you. I like you.
Listen, I like you. Honestly, I like you. I think it's great. I love this. I love this where we can talk and we can disagree about things, and you can put your point of view, and I can put mine. I do think oftentimes. Your arguments are tantamount to, well, everyone else in the world is wrong and you're right, Jason. That sort of thing. I find a little bit patronising. I mean, I don't see any need for a mask. I don't see any need for this mass hysteria. I don't see any need for the economy to have been absolutely fucking destroyed. There's no nighttime economy at all left. It's gone. It'll never return. And this is all due to this. Very, very fucking easily. And all right, if we, like you said, if we lose a few people die. Died. You know, I don't want anybody to fucking die. But,
how old are you?
Sorry?
How old are you?
50.
50? Oh, you've got 15 years left then. Logan's Run, mate. Like, this is monstrous. Like,
I'm not talking about Logan's Run. Oh my God, and that was 30 anyway. I'd have been fucking dead long ago. Yeah. If I were on Logan's Run. So
this idea that basically like, oh, it doesn't matter if your granddad.
It's not that. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is that probably the same amount of people would have died.
No, that's not true. We've already got 70,000 more people died this year already than the 5-year average.
And where's this coming from?
This is coming from the statistics of the ONS, Worldometer, Statistia, and everywhere. And you know why I know it's fucking true? Because as I said on the last program, the government is lying. They're telling you we've got 40,000 people died. And it's not true. They're hiding it. They're downplaying it, not because it's particularly the worst thing in the world, but because they don't want you to realize how badly they've fucked up. Right? So again, none of these statements hold true, Jason. I wish it was true.
I'm not making mine aren't statements. Mine are my own opinions. Okay.
Yeah, fine. They're fine.
Statements of opinion, and my opinions taken from my own personal experience, not brilliant from anybody else.
Right.
You know, all I'm saying is that I don't know anybody. Right. My wife's a social worker. And she visits people all the time, and she said there's been no COVID. There's been no COVID. My daughter's a carer. No COVID there. There's been no COVID anywhere. As far as I'm looking for it. Where we go? It's like George Bush, you know, when he says when he's doing that speech, and he's there. No. Where are them weapons of mass destruction? No, not over there. No, not over there. No, they've got to be here somewhere. And it's that's the same way that I feel about this.
I totally understand that. I would counter that you said at the beginning of the program that you haven't actually looked to see if there's any vlogs from people on COVID wars and stuff like that. You didn't know that I knew people that had been affected by it. You know, I can take you to the care homes just up the road from me if you want. We can go on a jaunt and find these things out. So whilst I understand that basically you haven't seen it personally, right? Okay. There's lots of people that have, and to dismiss this that everywhere else, you haven't seen it yourself, is silly.
I'm not dismissing it. I'm questioning it. Dismissing it to say, I said to you at the beginning, I don't know whether there's a virus.
Do you know anyone that's died of AIDS?
Yes, I do actually. I actually sat with somebody as they died of AIDS. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I actually
realised that lots of people
I took him to the toilet, and he went to the toilet,
Jason,
and he died on the toilet, and I took him back to bed.
No, you haven't. You have. I'm sorry. You haven't. Because
I've seen died with AIDS. Then with AIDS.
No.
AIDS-related illness. We've said this before.
No, you're missing my point. I'm doubting your story because I didn't see it. I've never seen anyone die of AIDS, so I'm doubting your story.
Right.
Do you see how silly that is? Of course I'm not. Of course I'm not. Of course I know that. I know people that have died of AIDS. Okay, this is the point. But I know lots of people who don't even know anyone that's had AIDS. So by their logic, AIDS doesn't exist. And yet
it's not. You know it exists. That's right. That's not. They can see it around them, right? They can see that. They can see it around them. Then look, I think we're wasting us time on this COVID-19, like me and you having a little.
Well, else I've got everyone in here, and they're going to be really pissed off with me anyway. I might as well push it right into 11. So recently, there was this thing that was going around where there was a freedom of information request. I think it was made up by Piers Corbyn, and loads of people have put this around. They've sent it to loads of different people, and it says basically, you need to show me proof that the virus has been isolated. The dramatic music, Jason. Anyway, so
this is one of the listeners ringing me. What an idiot!
Yeah. Well, just strap yourself in. Basically, this freedom of information request saying basically the government is required to send us this back. And what they've asked for the isolated virus. Now, what they've done, the cheeky sods, is they've done a little word game in there. And what they've put is that when we say isolated, we don't mean isolated in the sense of isolating in the scientific parlance, like on a monkey cell or on an in vitro cell or spun down or anything like that through PCR or anything like that, or even through proteins in blood. What we're asking for is the virus isolated, as in common parlance, as in there's nothing else there. It's completely on its own, separate from every other thing. It's literally just the virus, and we want a photograph of it. And that is shitty and cheap for a number of reasons. One, a freedom of information request is for something that's not in the public domain. The isolation, the genome, everything to do with SARS-CoV-2 and COVID-19 is in the public domain. So you don't need a freedom of information request. You might as well ask for a freedom of information request for your surname, right? The second point is the institutions that they've gone to asking for this freedom of information request, which is wrong in the first place, don't hold that information. In fact, this is why people are shitty, because in the response that people have chopped off the bottom, it says you've come to the wrong place. We don't hold this particular information at all. If you go to the science department, they will direct you to the information. The third shitty thing that they've done is basically that they've missed out the point that basically from the response from the DCHS, it actually includes the experiment that they did in London to isolate the virus. And it does use kidney cells and monkey in vitro, and it's spun down. Now, here's where they were really shitty. And this is a salesman technique. Yeah. We'll come to that. Like, this is a salesman technique. That if you have to do this sort of stuff, you really have to question your motives. Isolated a virus in the scientific parlance means that basically what you do is you take it out of the infected person, you allow it to infect a host cell, and then you spin it down so that you can extract the genome. And the reason you need to do this is for two reasons. One, you need to show the infective qualities of a virus. Two, you actually need a host cell for viruses to exist. Viruses can't exist unless they're airborne, but even then they're on particles. They can't exist on their own. So what they've done is they've gone, we want it isolated, as in completely separate from everything else, which is like saying I want to see a cloud in a vacuum. No oxygen, nothing around it. I want to see, like I want to see a bird, but not surrounded by anything. There can't be any other molecules in there. It's a cheap con man's trick. And you know, if you're having to do cheap con man's tricks like that to try and impress your point, you know that your point is a lie, right? Because if they'd simply said, can you show us where the virus has been isolated, please? They've gone, yeah, here you go. In fact, that's exactly what they did. In the response from the DHCS, they said, yeah, here you go. Here's the experiments. Here's all the things. Here's the slides. Here's the pictures of it. Everything that you want. And yet still, you've got people pushing that stupid thing. And this is basically exactly what I was saying with the 6% of the CDC and the chromosome 8 thing, and how the virus actually kills you, the dying with, and stuff like that, is what you asked me right at the beginning of this. And then we'll finish this, we'll go on to Shadowgate, because I'm just making people angry. But the point is that basically people have looked for the answers that they wanted. They've come up with an idea and they've coloured the narrative. In February, they decided that this was nothing, absolutely nothing. It's not going to affect people. So every single piece of evidence, they've looked at it through that particular lens. And you can go back, you can track every single one of these things, and they were wrong. They're absolutely wrong. They were provably wrong about these things. And that's perfectly okay. It's fine to be wrong. But what it's not fine to do is to just basically not deal with new data as it comes in. And basically go, no, I'm ignoring that, sticking to this. I'm just going with that. And anything that comes along is just dismissed. And that's what everybody has done. So that is where my criticism of the alternative media comes in. That's why I gave them such a low score, because basically that's what they've done. They've not examined anything properly. And in some cases, they've resorted to really shitty, shoddy tricks. And it's like you finding all these people and going, well, if they're lying about this and they're lying about this, why? It taints them, right? Okay, it makes them look like they're out to sell a book, or they're out to build their brand, or they're out to get advertising clicks, or they're out to just basically fill content. And that's not why we're in this. What pisses me off, right, Jason, is that basically this is the independent thought movement. Yeah, been surprisingly uniform, isn't it? Surprisingly uniform in what everybody's position on this is. And again, nobody's willing to basically just look at the opposing argument.
Well, I am, and that's
you
what
are.
I'm doing.
Yes, like I'm speaking in grand hyperbolic terms, because I'm a grand hyperbolic person, a twat, as some people would call it. But
listen, like I say, like I was saying before, we could sit and argue all night about, you know, the ins and outs and and what we believe and what have you. But I did want to get a little bit in because I was listening to your interview today, and you were talking about the Shadowgate film.
Yeah.
Now I watched the Shadowgate film. But I only watched it once, and I've got to say, I pretty much, when I heard what you said today about it, you know, it was one of them things that I just watched and just threw away, you know, in my brain. So I didn't do any. I didn't do any research into it. So, but you did, didn't you? You did research into the people that were in there and what they were up to.
Well, not just that, but the film, because basically the whole point was that the film popped up and it started mentioning Cambridge Analytica, and obviously people know that that's the thing I've been interested in for a long time. And the way that they were talking about Cambridge Analytica, I was like, that's not what it did. That's not even close to what it was about. Cambridge Analytica basically got Donald Trump elected. They did his entire campaign, and it works in several ways. Basically, what they do is they stole your data, and they basically cultivated advertising campaigns that were specifically driven at you. And this would either be done with sort of like films that were made by people like the Gatestone Institute, or stories that were fed into the media and then put out through the alt media. Because basically you'll find that like Rebel Media, for example, is owned by the Mercers. The Mercers are the billionaire AI gurus connected with Palantir and stuff like that, and the Heritage Foundation that basically were behind the Cambridge Analytica. And so basically anybody that works for Rebel Media, like Tommy Robinson, Kate Hopkins, Tommy Loren, Lawrence Southern, Laura Loomer, I forget who else is on that, but basically Red State Radio and all of those things, they're owned by the Mercers, and basically they're the elites. They are literally the deep state that Trump was supposedly fighting against. These stories were also put out by people like Ben Shapiro, who's paid by the Wilkes brothers, or Dave Rubin, or Stephen Crowder, or Candace Owens, or Tucker Carlson, or Glenn Beck, all who were paid by the Koch brothers. And this isn't even denied. You know, Turning Point UK, Turning Point USA is Koch Industries propaganda. The Blaze is Koch Industries propaganda. The Spectator, for example, is run by the Barclay brothers. And all of these entities basically all come together, like Breitbart as well. Steve Bannon is connected to Milo Yiannopoulos and all of those idiots. They all came together to basically like bolster these stories and spread this concept around. Now, the interesting thing is that basically, like, the deep state, we're fighting against the deep state, that came from Cambridge Analytica. Cambridge Analytica in as early as 2014, when Ted Cruz was actually the candidate, before they figured out that Trump would be more saleable. They came up with the slogans: drain the swamp, build the wall, lock her up, and the concept of the presidential candidate fighting against the forces of the deep state. So all of those concepts and all of those ideas were actually created by Cambridge Analytica as marketing strategies to basically get Trump in. So when this trailer came along, and was sent to me by John Brisson, who's from We've Read the Documents, who's an excellent channel that people should check out. And he's sort of a really great at sort of like, you know, researching the Council of National Policy and stuff like that. And he sent it to him, and he's like, "This is bullshit. This is utter nonsense. It's totally misrepresenting what Cambridge Analytica does and what it was involved in." And to my mind, and this didn't change after I watched the film, the whole point of the film is just to give people a reference point. So if I start talking about Cambridge Analytica, or you start mentioning Cambridge Analytica, or John, or anybody basically, so you know Cambridge Analytica got Donald Trump elected, you know Cambridge Analytica, which is run by the CIA and MI6, you know they were behind the Brexit vote. People can go, "Oh no, I've seen that shadow game, and it's not true. They actually were opposed to Donald Trump, the film says." And then you go, "Okay, fine. Explain to me what the film actually told you." And nobody can, because the film is incredibly incoherent. It only makes 2 points that are correct. One, that these entities exist that will steal your data, and they will use that to manipulate you, either in a political sense, or in an advertising sense, or to direct you towards certain products or websites or ideologies or anything like that. And two, that there are at the other end of the spectrum, there are companies that will spy on you and then tattle on you to your boss, or they will essentially not even, it's even before that, they will build a profile of you and your interactions in life, taken from your sort of purchase history, where you go and what you look at online, and what sort of films you rent, what sort of music you stream, and anything, any piece of data that they can collect about you, they will put it into their algorithm, and it builds a picture of you. And what this is used for by companies like Dynology and ClearForce and stuff like that is to sell to companies, and it rates you a lot like the sort of Chinese status system. And basically
social credit, yeah.
Social credit, thank you. So basically, like, if you're a 7 out of 10 or above, this company might hire you. If you're a 7 out of 10 or below, this company's not even looking at you. And it might even go so far as to basically, like, whether you're suitable for a business loan, whether you're suitable for a mortgage, whether you're suitable for an application to run a business, and that sort of thing. And it's beyond, like, you know, there's sensible measures and stuff like that. Like, if you know you're going to work in a children's school or something like that, you want to check that basically, you know, you have to register sex offender or something like that. That's perfectly sensible. This goes way beyond that, to the point where it's Orwellian. It literally is just determining your, it's like, it's basically determining your sort of status and worth within corporate entities based on what you do in your private life. And that aspect of it is ridiculous. It's completely immoral, it's completely illegal, but it's done. unfortunately, the problem is that basically every single thing else that was in that particular film transpired to either be a lie or to be exaggerated. Like, basically, the long and short of it is that there was two whistleblowers in this film. You've got Tory Lindemann, Maris Lindemann, and Patrick Bergy. And Patrick Bergy was actually telling the truth. Basically, he joined the army when he was quite late in life. He was like 39. And because of sort of previous experience, he got working on this thing called ShadowNet. And what ShadowNet is it's a sort of firewall breaker and VPN emulator. So what it does is it hacks into other people's communication channels and systems and stuff like that, and it intercepts messages. And through this, you can interfere with, you know, battle plans. You can interfere with terrorist organizations and cells and stuff like that. And then what it can do is it can make it look like you're working on like a archaic laptop and you're in a cave in Afghanistan or something like that. So it sort of mimics other people's IP addresses and positions in the world and stuff like that to give the impression that the person that you're communicating with doesn't know who you are. So you can pretend to be their boss, say, or you can pretend to be a general and give orders. Again, that's real. That's a real thing. Like, it was used in Iraq, but that's not actually that newfangled or anything like that. That's a J-Trig program that was exposed by Edward Snowden like many years ago. And again, it is a very real thing, but basically it's, you know, it's just that it really is that the clear force aspect that they were showing was far better. The problem is that basically they've tried to sort of tie it into this nonsense thing where basically Trump's the good guy, which totally ignores two things. One, his relationship with Roger Stone and Roy Cohn, and two, the fact that Cambridge Analytica literally got him elected, and he had to audition in front of the Heritage Foundation and the Council for National Policy, who are CIA funded, before he was allowed to take this role. So it just totally ignores that, and it comes up with this really sort of convoluted and ridiculous thread that there's some people on the left and some people on the right. And it's basically anybody who's ever said anything bad against Trump, and they are the deep state, and they're the bad guys that Trump's fighting against. And the problem is, aside from the fact that it doesn't make any sense, it's relying on the testimony of the whistleblower, Tory Lindemann. And the problem is that she's totally made up everything that she says. Like, she claims to have been educated at Harvard, right? That's a lie. She was never educated at Harvard. There's no record of her at Harvard. She also claims to have been educated at Columbia. That's also a lie. She's never, ever been there. She's also, in the past, claims to be a medical doctor, and she's actually appeared on like several programs offering medical advice. She claims to have got this degree from the University of Kentucky. This is also a lie. She works for Rebel Media on Red State Radio, so that's basically owned by the Mercers.
That's the Tommy Robinson platform, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. And at the beginning of the actual documentary, they used the phrase "drain the swamp," which is the Cambridge Analytica thing, which was the thing that made me immediately go, "Well, this is nonsense. I don't know what they're talking about." This woman, basically, Tory Lindemann, she claims that she's like a spy. She claims that basically she's worked in the military for years and years and years. She claims to be so embedded in naval intelligence that she was able to shout at CIA top brass, and that she was able to shout at Brennan and had a go at Obama. She claims she's got Hillary's emails, you know. Those emails that went missing, she's got them. She doesn't say what's in them, and she's not going to release them because she's lying. But she claims that she is. She also claims that she invented Stuxnet, for Christ's sake. Stuxnet is the pirating thing, the Trojan horse virus that destroyed the Iranian nuclear facilities. She claims to have invented that. Right, like she also claims to have got the Purple Heart, the Distinguished Service Medal. She's got an Afghanistan Service Medal, a Kosovo Campaign Medal, Combat Action Ribbon, and medals for being an expert in pistols and rifles. Right, this is also a lie. She claims to be an 04 naval officer, which is a department head or an executive officer on a ship or an aircraft carrier or head of a SEAL team. This is a lie. How do we know this is a lie? Well, because basically she's worked on Red State Radio for the last God knows how long, and never once has she basically decided to mention that she was a spy working in all these things. We also know that basically she wasn't. She was in the Navy for 8 months before she was kicked out. How do we know this? Well, because Tori Lindemann, when she was running for mayor, busy woman, this woman, she defrauded a Christmas charity. She set up this Christmas charity, and basically she fraudulently connected it to various charities. And they told her, no, it's nothing to do with us. Take our logo off the website. She refused to do that, collected a load of money, and tried to keep it. She stole. She's the Grinch. She literally stole Christmas, right? And basically, in this court case, it was revealed that she'd only done 8 months of naval service. It's illegal to lie about. It's called stolen valor. To lie about medals and stuff like that, it's illegal. It's illegal to pretend to be a medical doctor when you're not a medical doctor. And basically, the point is that if she was never in naval intelligence, because she was never in the Navy, because she was off doing all these other things, and we can basically track what she was doing on the radio show for all these years, it means that every single thing that she said as a whistleblower, which is the majority of the film, is nonsense. Is utterly nonsense. Further to that, for some strange reason, she refuses to divorce her husband. People have offered to pay for it and stuff like that, and she refuses to divorce him for, I don't know why, but he's in prison at the minute after turning himself in for repeatedly sexually abusing a 10-year-old, which is a bit of, it's not her fault by any stretch of the imagination, but it's like, it's another one of these things. It's like, what? Why have you got all these dodgy stuff floating around you all the time? And yeah, the sad thing is about that film is basically it's just all full of shit. It's just like totally just nonsense, and none of what they said hung together or made any sense, other than the fact that Clear Force is a real thing, Dynology is a real thing, and what they do is appalling. And the idea that there are companies that steal your data. Oh, and the shadow net's a real thing, but I watched that film twice and couldn't figure out what it was. And it was only when my mate John actually interviewed Patrick and just asked him straight up, what is it? How does it work? That he explained it, and it was like, oh right, it does that. Oh, okay, that didn't come across in the film, which is a bit weird. So yeah, unfortunately, that's the thing. I know that's a bit negative, and I know a lot of people are going, "Oh, of course you hated it, Neil. You hate everything. You're a contrarian." It's like, no, I really don't. Like, I was hoping that basically they'd show something good about Cambridge Analytica, but they didn't. They totally misrepresented it. They completely misrepresented it, and it looks like the entire thing was just fantasy of some woman that wanted attention. I mean, we should have been aware of this when Alex Jones dropped it like a hot turd. Like, if Alex Jones is like, that's too weird for me, like, then you know it's fucked. Because basically, like, you know what I mean? He can't have any more lawsuits around him anymore. Basically, he's done.
So I was just putting that in chat room. Jason, just pop off and have a dump. That's a reference to one of my listeners who does his own show sometimes after I've finished, and he's a guy in America, and and sometimes he goes for a dump while he's doing his show. What there has been questions about, will you take a vaccine?
No.
Okay.
No, it's being rushed. I'm not a fucking idiot. I don't know. Like, again, this is the point. I don't trust the fucking government. I don't know. Like, I've just got a different opinion to everybody on this. Basically, they think they're lying and creating it. I think no, they've fucked it up. They've ballsed it up. It's a real thing, and they're trying to hide how badly they've done it. That's my take on it. And I know it's real because I've had personal interaction with people that have been affected by it. And I'm not going to fucking lie to people, right? This is the other point, right? I could have jumped on this and gone, viruses don't exist. The exosome thing is real. I agree with this. It's 5G. And you know what I did? Instead, I took the decision to tell you guys the truth because I respect you more than that. And frankly, I think that a lot of the crap that people are putting out there is irresponsible to the point of being dangerous. Like, you know, like if people are telling you don't go and get checked out and stuff like that, viruses don't exist, there's no way you can catch this, there's no way it could affect you or anybody close to you. It's just not true. It's simply not true. And you've got to question why people are doing that, okay? Like either because like they haven't seen it or not bothered to look at it, or because they know they're lying. And in some of these people's cases, I know they're lying because I've had private conversations with them, and basically they've seen the stuff, but they're sticking to their guns now, and that's shitty.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I don't think it's been handled very well in alternative media. Probably same as in mainstream media. It's not been handled well. And in your case, as you would say, the government's not handled it well. I mean, we've got different opinions. It's great that you can come on this show and we can talk, and the chat room can be, disagreeing with you all night. And you know, they keep moaning at me that I'm not popping questions up, but it's going that fast.
Please, like, I'm happy to answer any questions and clear up any misconceptions because I'm an open book. You'll find that basically my story doesn't change because I'm telling you the truth. So please, if there's any of these questions, like, hopefully I've got answers for them. If I haven't got answers for them, I'll go away and try and find out.
Well, you'll have to look back.
Oh, I don't know.
There's just tons of them, tons of just. I can't remember any. That's the thing. That's the thing about live, doing this stuff live. I'm trying to watch the thing. I'm trying to listen to you, and I'm trying to take everything in, and I'm trying to put things up on screen and do stuff as well. So it is really interesting talking to you, man. But what have you made of the demonstrations that have been going on? Are you have you been along to any for a start?
Am I say what?
Been along to? I don't suppose you've been along to any freedom demonstrations, you know, for masks.
No, because I understand people's frustrations and people's want to get out and stuff like that, but I honestly just don't think that they're gonna do any good. And like, I also think that some of them have been hijacked by people who want to basically just grow their brand and are selling themselves as being sort of the people and really aren't, to be quite honest. And yeah, I think there's a lot of people who are just basically trying to, like, they want attention. They just want attention. Like, and again, I don't agree with a lot of the messaging that's coming out there. So basically, when you've got people on there saying that, like, you know, so the virus isn't real, and like, you know, you shouldn't wear masks because they're going to kill you from hypoxia, and the tests don't work, and the vaccine's gonna alter your DNA so that you go sterile, and just, you know, mad shit. It doesn't work on a series of ways. Right? One, because the most extreme and stupid stuff basically just like taints the rest of it and makes everybody look silly, and so you can't even have that sensible conversation. And the other point is that I don't really agree with the what they're putting forward. A lot of it, I understand people's frustrations, and if people want to do it, go nuts. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, but no, no, I didn't go to anything. Oh, here we go. The angry comments.
They want your qualifications, and look, you don't need qualifications to read and learn things, do you? You don't need a piece of paper to tell you that you can read and learn things. So you're a psychologist, aren't you?
Huh? Well, I mean, I work in government compliance. So basically, this is one of the things where like, I shout at government people for fucking stuff up, basically. Like, so when, for example, that HSID thing came out, and everyone was like, well, if it's not a high consequence infectious disease, that means that then it's cool, it's fine, it means it's harmless. And I understand why people thought that, but basically, because that's what I do for my job all day, is read government documents and go, oh, this is poorly written, this is bad, this is put together backwards. I understood what it said. And government documents are written backwards, and it had the explanation right at the bottom, but it had the sort of good stuff at the top. And all that basically meant was that basically a HSID, a high consequence infectious disease, is something like Ebola, that has a more than 20% fatality rate and isn't easily detectable by a test. And the thing is that basically by the time that thing came out, we already had the PCR test, which could test for COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-2. So it can't possibly be in that category. Also, it doesn't kill enough people to do that. Like initially they thought it was going to be an Ebola, like, you know, killing half of the people that they got. It wasn't. It turned out to be about sort of 4%, 3-4% death rate, which is still a lot higher than say something like flu, but it's not high enough to be a high consequence infectious disease. So this was the point. That's why I started with this, because basically everyone said if it's not a high consequence infectious disease, that means that it's perfectly safe. And it's not what it means. It just means it's in division 2 rather than division 1. So the example would be that Ebola, for example, is like Inter Milan. Your body is a Sunday league football team. You've got to play Inter Milan. You're going to get beat 50-0 because they are a high consequence infectious disease. SARS-CoV-2, COVID-2 isn't that at all. What it is basically Derby County, Nottingham Forest, something like that. It's going to beat you 7-0, but it's still going to beat you. Now, just for sort of a comparison, flu is a rival Sunday team that you expect to beat 2-0. Right? That's how it works on the scale of how dangerous this is. And so that was my particular problem with that, is that people were jumping on this because they wanted closure. They wanted to be reassured that this meant that they were safe. And it didn't mean that. And although I wanted it to mean that, spreading false hope is as dangerous as lying to somebody sometimes.
But you see, look, I get your point. I really do. But you know, when I read something that's, when I see something and I see that it's anti-COVID and it's, you know, that it doesn't exist or all like that, I don't even read it. I don't even read it. I scroll past it because that's what my personal fucking issue is. Now, I'm also a member of a closed group which is to do with antiphospholipid syndrome, which is what's wrong with me. Now I will, because that affects me, and I will read what other people's, you know, what their experiences and what have you. But because I don't feel as though I need to know anything about this thing until the time that it comes along and taps me on the shoulder. You know what I mean? And I'm told I'm at risk. I'm told I'm at risk. I'm one of the at-risk people. I've got a dodgy heart, 2 heart attack. Like I said, I've got all this fucking shit going on. And, you know, I'm one of the people that I'm assuming they're going to come around and offer me a vaccine, but I'm not going to take it because it's not happened to me. You know what I mean? But the antiphospholipid syndrome group that I go on, I listen to what people say in there simply because I know that it's something that's real and it's something that's applicable to me. And whilst this evades me, while this COVID-19 evades me and everybody that I know, and I mean everybody that I know, I don't know anybody that's even tested positive without any signs. So until that happens, then, you know, giving people, don't you think giving people false hope that false information that it is a real thing is just as damaging as information that there isn't?
No, you're absolutely right. But it's not false information, is it? Now, if I was exaggerating it and saying you're all going to die, like, then that would be just as bad. Yeah, but I don't think I've ever said that. What I've said is,
no, you've not said that at all. You've not come on here and you've not been sort of like the prophet of doom and what have you. You've just stuck by your story the same as you did before. You know, this is what you believe to be true. All I'm saying is, until it actually affects you, and I think there's a lot of, you know, where we talk about people waking up, right? Yeah. When we talk about people waking up, it's usually when something has happened personally to them,
Yeah.
And then they've had to do some research and then found things and rabbit holes, and that's when they've woken up. I know, I know that from personal experience.
Which is why I've got this angle on it, because I know
I've not
people
seen
that
enough people woken up to COVID-19. I've not seen it.
Fair enough. But okay, I have.
I don't believe him. I don't believe you have. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you've seen people that you know that have died, and they
I'll just be honest. Like, it's not like my close friends. Like the closest, like it's like my mum's. Some people that go to a bowls club. The lady that lives across the road who was in the shop. 3 people who from my work who I didn't know personally but knew of them, and people like that. And then it's been, but it's because of where I live. I think that basically it was just unfortunate that people got affected by it. Like, so it's not like my mum or my brother or like my friend died of it, but it's people like that I've met. And then actually, my friend, my good friend's brother and his wife, they've recovered from it. And they're her mother-in-law. So this is the point. Like, and again, this is because I have seen that. What should I do, Jason? Should I when people say doesn't exist, should I go, oh yeah, because I know that not to be the case. So I know, and again, I could have gone on the whole sort of like I could have done the money making thing and done the things that are popular that told people what they wanted to hear, but I didn't want to do that because what's the point? That's not why we're in this. We're in this to find answers.
You've had personal experience, so that's where your belief. Well, that's where your opinions come from. My opinions are still valid. I've not seen anything.
The arguments that are put forward where people say stuff like the freedom of information thing, like the chromosome 8 thing, like the 6% thing, like the died of with thing, like all of those, they're not valid. There's an explanation for them. So anybody saying that basically it's just like the flu, or the numbers are just comparable to the flu, or they're moving the flu deaths over and stuff like that, it's not true. We can go over it and we can check it together if you really like. But what annoys me is that basically other people haven't bothered to check. People are, it's not actually fulfilled Koch's postulates. It's like, do you know about the macaque experiments? Do you know about the experiments done with llamas and mice and pangolins and things like that? No, you didn't. What you've done is you've heard someone say something on the television and you've not bothered to check it. Right? Okay, it's television, fucking YouTube, right? And this is what gets me. It used to be basically question everything. Don't take my word for it. You go and check the source documents. And nobody's doing that at the minute. And when I bother to do that, everyone goes, oh, fuck you, Neil. You're a communist.
Listen, Neil, I completely agree with you. I completely agree. Listen, we are nowhere near as far apart on this as you think, right? I'm coming from it from an apathetic point of view, whereas it's not affected me or anybody that I know up till this moment in time. So that's where I'm gaining my experience from. I've no need to look into it because it's not affecting me, right?
Well, no, and here's the thing, right? Okay, and I hope it doesn't affect you personally, but it is affecting you on in as much as basically the lockdown and again the uncertainty and waiting and your waiting list and stuff like that. And there is an argument that basically, as I said, like all this sort of pretending that it doesn't exist and stuff like that. Now, here's the fine line, right? Because basically, what this is going to sound like is just do everything the government says and just listen to them. It's like, no, it's not as straightforward as that. But basically, if everyone wants this to end, everyone wants this to go back to normal and end. And there's certain things that people are doing is basically just dragging this fucking out by basically like pretending, oh, there's no consequence to this, it doesn't exist, and blah, blah, blah. Stamping your feet, right, and being annoyed with the situation isn't going to change reality. Right, and you know what? If people get some fucking comfort from it, like whatever, do it, fine. I don't give a shit. But basically, what you're doing is basically like people who are dying who suddenly find religion, and like fine if you want to do that, that's cool. But like but the arguments just don't hold water.
Okay. Right. Let me just put this last point here, because we've gone to 10 o'clock, and I know you've probably got stuff to do and what have you. And I know I need another drink, so I'm just about dry as a bone. But when we are talking about when you're talking about these examples of things that you can explain, there are a number of those things that need explaining.
Yeah, well, I agree. They do need explaining, but the thing is, there are explanations for them, and I don't think anybody's looking for them. They're just going, this needs explaining, and so people like myself go, the explanation for that is this. Fuck you, Neil, you lickspittle. Right, okay, whatever. You've decided. As I said, this is the point. People have decided. It's called colouring the narrative. And basically, like, rather than what you're doing is going to make the evidence fit to what you decided in February, rather than look at the evidence and move along with it, basically.
Well, all I'm going to say is thanks very much. Don't, everybody listening, don't believe me or what he says, him next door to me. Don't believe anything. Look for yourself. Research for yourself.
This is the point. Go and look it up. Go and actually bother to look it up, right? And look at the wording of these things and check if that's right about chromosome 8, and check if the Freedom of Information request makes a stupid con man's trick, right? And check to see if Andrew Kaufman ever went to MIT, and check to see if what he's saying about exosomes is fucking bullshit, right? And check to see if Dr. Buttar got done for malpractice for injecting a dying woman with bleach. Right? Check these things. Go and find out about the people who basically are making money off you, charging $1,000 an hour for a Skype call, $450 an hour for a Skype call, admitting that they don't know anything about viruses, and they're having the fucking balls to charge you a king's ransom to tell you stuff that could hurt you. These people aren't on your fucking side, right? They're just telling you what they want you to hear. And you know why? Because that's how fucking cons work. Right? They tell you exactly what you want to hear, right? So that you pay them, so that it grows their profile, and you either give them clicks or advertising, you buy the book, or you watch the latest documentary or whatever. And it's all a grift. It's a grift, and it's the most distasteful grift, because basically this isn't like, this could hurt people, right? And for what? For fame on the internet, for money. Come on, that's not what this is about, man.
No, it's listen, it's a huge thing, but you know what? I fucking absolutely love having you on this show, Neil. I love it. I love the being able to have a. I know you said when you rolled up, and I stole it for this show. This time it's personal, but I hope it's not ever personal between us.
It's not. It's a joke. It was a joke. I was just joking. Yeah. Like, I couldn't think of a way to quickly advertise that I was coming back on. Like, and again, like, I haven't been looking at the comments, but I imagine, are they all hateful? Do they all hate me?
No, not all of them. No, I put some good ones.
Huh? But you know, I said this last time. Get those questions together. Like, I'll go through those questions. I'll answer those questions quite happily. Whatever questions they've got. Like, you know, what about this study? What about this? But what about the 455 people who weren't infected by asymptomatic? I've probably looked into it. Like, so, you know, I'm quite happy to go through those questions and stuff like that. Like, if you want to collect them again, I'll come back on. You can spit bile at me for a third time. Like,
listen, you welcome back on anytime. I'd love getting you on.
I'm talking in the chat. Like, I mean, I don't even know what they're saying, to be quite honest. Like, but I imagine
if you'd have told me, I'd have told you where to find it. Are you using a tablet or something?
No, I just don't understand computers.
Oh, right, okay. Well, I couldn't have told you where to do it.
I've got my mate here. He's wincing and looking at them, and so I can tell the sort of like the way they're going. Like, but I don't care. I honestly don't care. Right? Okay, I'm going to tell you the truth. You want to listen to it? Listen to it. You don't want to listen to it? Fuck off and listen to other people and pay them $1,000 an hour. Give a shit.
My sentiments exactly. My sentiments exactly. If you want to listen to us, listen to us. And if you don't, then don't. It don't really matter. It don't really matter to me. Neil, it's been an absolute pleasure. Once again, I think this is about 4th or 5th time you've been on, hasn't it? I know you came on with me and Andy one time.
One day I'll come on and we'll get on all right, and we'll just agree for the whole episode, and nobody will be interested.
I don't think that's going to happen, is it? We can't agree all episodes. Go blimey, they don't call me contrary for nothing.
Well, I mean, but this is the point. What gets me as well is that basically, what's the question?
Ask Neil where we can find the evidence that he refers to about pangolin and mice studies and so on.
Just Google it, look it up. Like, I mean, I'll send you the macaque study if you want. But yeah, like, sorry, somebody in the chat apparently asked, where can you find the information about the pangolin and the mice experiments and the llama experiments and the macaque monkeys? Just Google it, but just put monkey experiment SARS-CoV-2, or email me and I'll send it to you. Like, or go and watch Kevin McCain or London Fakes channel, where it says, where he does a little video basically showing you the Koch's postulates and how they passed it through monkeys. They tried with all different types of monkey, and basically they discovered that macaques responded most like human beings in this regard, and basically they showed the striation patterns in the lungs and stuff like that, and yeah, they've done loads of experiments passing it from monkeys. Like, so where that came from is that the very first paper that came out by the New England Medical Journal, which just isolated it, it said in the end of the paper, this did not fulfill Koch's postulates because they'd not had time to transfect it from one person to another. They'd done the other stages and they isolated it and found the genome, but they weren't able to have the time to basically put it in a live subject and transfect it into another live subject. But since then, loads and loads of papers have. And this is what I mean about altering your position once new evidence comes in, because that position, that was in January, and already by March, they'd done it in loads and loads of different animals, basically.
Sweet.
One more.
I've got a slightly deeper one.
Go on.
It was.
Come on.
Could you ask Neil if he's sponsored by 1664?
Am I sponsored by 1664? Well, I mean, I can't say yes or no, but 1664 is the finest alcohol that you can buy.
I'm going to have to disagree with you.
No, I know, I'm being a dick because
there's a raspberry vodka that's, there's a raspberry vodka that they sell in Morrison's, and it comes with a corking top. It's about 20 quid for a litre. And oh my God, if my missus usually goes to on a Friday and goes and gets us alcohol for the weekend, if she comes back with that, and I can just sip it. I just sip it and sip it and sip it. You can't add something to it because it ruins it. Beautiful stuff. Anyway, it's been a great show. Just hang about, when I end this broadcast, just hang about and I'll have a quick chat with you before, after the show. And to all our listeners, thanks to everybody who's been in the chat room, everyone listening on Facebook and on YouTube as well. I'll see you on Friday. I'll be back for an After Dark. Hopefully it won't be as controversial this time. Well, it shouldn't be as controversial this time. So just join me on Friday. I don't mean as this show.
Oh,
I mean,
right. Bloody hell. What are you doing, Jason?
Last week's After Dark. That's what I'm talking about, which were rather controversial. But anyway, I'll see you on Friday. I keep saying we. I keep forgetting I'm on my own. I keep forgetting I'm not in love anymore and all that. Anyway, take it easy, everybody. See you Friday night for an After Dark. Ta-ra a bit.